What if we could learn from outstanding leaders in business, sports, and education from some of the best voices in corporate America? Lighting the Path is a series of interviews with industry leaders whose stories highlight strategies that build purpose-driven cultures, engage and retain top talent, develop drivers that create high-performance teams, and connect people to the vision of your company. Join us to hear from game-changing, talented leaders whose paths make a difference at work and at home.
I'm really excited about my guest today. This session's gosh, it's probably 12, 13 years in the making now, because I had a chance to meet Fred Caldwell when we started this journey together with a ministry a while back that we're involved with called the JH Outback Ministries. And I've learned to just see his leadership firsthand, not only within the ministry, but this amazing company that he's been blessed to have built called the Caldwell Companies. And it's known as one of the top real estate development companies literally in the United States. And so I'm just honored to be able to share some of what I've gained from my relationship with Fred over the years, and just blessed to not only call him an associate and somebody who serves together, but a friend. So, Fred, welcome to our show.
Thanks, Mike, and it's a pleasure to be here. And I so treasure our friendship and the things we've gotten to do in life. I love the idea of kind of doing ministry and life and work, and all these things are kind of all integrated together. And you're part of that for me, and just a dear friend. And you've been a big help for our company. You've come in and given a number of talks and seminars and whatnot for our people, and done a great job with that.
No, I appreciate that. And it's one of the phrases I picked up from you is marketplace ministry, and that's something that you and I step into. I try to boldly, but we own that, and that's a little bit about what today is going to be about. But for those that are listening or watching what we're doing here, help them understand, how did you get into real estate development? Because I know the beginning of your story, well, not the beginning, early story was you were a football player for Texas A&M University.
So coming out of college, I played football in college, and I got a degree in accounting. After 4 years of accounting, the only thing I knew, one thing I wouldn't do, and that would be an accountant. I'd be a horrible accountant, as you know me so well. I would be the worst accountant on the planet. But fortunately, I had another year of eligibility, and I was still playing, and so I went to grad school in finance, and I worked for two real estate professors there at Texas A&M, and that really kind of kindled my interest in real estate, and specifically real estate investment and development. So coming out of grad school, I went to work for a home builder and land developer initially. Then I worked for a commercial developer. And then in 1990, coming out of truly the Great Recession, maybe Depression, the RTC days, we started our company in 1990, now 32 years ago. And, God has been gracious to us. Not that it was ever been easy, but we were able to kind of put some things together in the 1990s, coming out of that tough time of the 80s, where we were able to make some investments and did our first land development in 1995. So 5 years into it, we were onto our first land development and acquiring assets and buildings and whatnot. But over the years, we've been just so fortunate to build a solid team, great people. I'm so thankful for the people we have. As you know, Mike, it's just so much about the people and the team. So love our team and the opportunity we get every day. We have a vision statement that we build extraordinary communities that enrich people's lives, and that's our goal. And at the base of it, we say we honor God by doing that. So for us, it's kind of this higher purpose of how do you make someone's life better? And we fortunately are in a business that we get to do that in a way. I mean, I love driving down our streets of our communities and seeing a mother pushing a stroller with kids in the stroller, or people jogging, or a couple holding hands, walking down the street, walking down the sidewalks and paths and whatnot, and kids swimming in pools. So those are high returns for me, and just so thankful that we get to do what we get to do every day.
Yeah, so it's your company is a perfect example of kind of a program that I work with. It's called Work of Leaders, and 300, world-class leaders were studied, 150 world-class companies, and they break down the three components of effective leadership. The first one is being able to cast a vision. The second is build alignment, and third is champion execution. And one of the challenges I think that a lot of us as leaders fall into is we have a tendency to kind of skip one or two of those steps. Let's go champion execution the best that we can.
Yeah.
But you, better than most, really, I think, my observation with this awesome leadership team you've collected, do an awesome job of casting a vision of where you're headed, of focusing on it. What have you learned in the process that sort of is a tool or resource that helps you and your leadership team to really own that through some really difficult times?
There's a lot in your question, Mike. As I think about your question, we're in a business where, and particularly in our master plan community business, and we're in different pieces. So we build multifamily and build for rent, other types of housing products in particular. But the master plan community business in particular has a very long shelf life. We have, in fact, I'm sitting in a community right now. Our office is called Town Lake. I'm in the boardwalk with the mixed use piece of Town Lake. We're now 20 years into this development, and we've got another 5 to go probably. So you think about, we're 25 years on one particular large plan development. We have multiple of these going on. So, we're fortunately in a business that gives us the opportunity you have to have vision because, we're looking out decades in some of these developments that we do. So, I think vision, for me, I love casting vision. I like speaking to vision. I like getting the team around. I'm a team guy. I grew up playing team sports like you, Mike. And so I've always, it's funny. I remember somebody telling me one time, "Hey, you're a really competitive guy." I'm competitive, but I'm more of I like the team winning. I don't need to personally win. And there's a kind of a difference in that. I think some people are very wired. They personally need to win. For me, I more want our team to win. And I don't necessarily have to have individual wins within that. I want our team to win. And so for me, that's been a big driver since as long as I can remember being a kid. I just like being on teams that play together well and have fun and enjoy what they do. And I've learned a lot from that. And I've learned a lot from as a leader. I've been around, fortunately, I had so many great coaches as a kid in different sports, I learned, I still text and talk to, but particularly by text, my 6th grade Pee Wee football coach.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah. Ponce de Leon. He's one of the best coaches I ever had. And he was the first man that really encouraged me, Mike, and poured into me. And we won the city championship that year. And Ponce de Leon, Coach de Leon, was just such just made a big impact on me. And so I know you've had coaches like that. And I was fortunate and blessed. I had coaches like that through high school and into college. My position coach in college, Paul Register, was like a father to me. And I love Coach Register, our defense coordinator. R.C. Slocum is probably my closest friend in life. And to this day, we travel and do things together with our wives. And so I think I've been so fortunate to be around a lot of really good leaders, and man, I have made every error possible in leadership. And yet, you learn through those things. That'd be my encouragement to anybody that sees this is, as leaders, we stumble. I mean, I can tell you so many. In fact, I keep a little red book. And at the end of I do. And at the end of every year, God told me this about 25 years ago, and I started doing it, and I've done it now for 25 years. At the end of every year, I write down what happened during the year, and it's usually about the 30th or 31st of December. I'll take 2 hours, and I'll sit in my office, and I'll close the doors, and I'll write down a synopsis of the year. But in that, I'll write down all the errors that I made.
So not just the victories, the errors that you
made. Write down, hey, what I'd like to say is that process has allowed me to not make those same errors again. But what I will tell you is, as I flip back through there over 25 years, and I do that, I've made a lot of the same errors repeatedly. And a lot of those relate to hiring people and, misses like that. But I think it is valuable to know that, we're gonna misstep, and we're gonna even repeat errors as much as any of us hate. We all hate repeating an error twice, but we do in life. But we learn from it, we grow from it. So I like this notion the guy told me years ago of keeping this I call it the little red book. And I've had it now for, like I say, now I think over 25 years of looking back year over year, what's happened in that year. And again, what went right, and where could I have made better decisions? And I think that's how we grow, is kind of being really honest with ourselves about, so easy. I want to pat myself on the back, but at the end of the day, I'm like, I want to get better. And I never had my best coaches always were quick to say, okay, that was good, but I want you to do this, this, and this, right? So, I think that's how we get better, is always having an honest perspective about ourselves.
Yeah, it's that self-awareness, ability to look in the mirror and look at yourself, not beating yourself up, but just recognizing those things. And one of the observations I've had from getting a chance to play with you in a lot of different circumstances, but especially with these leaders, and not just the leaders, but within the company, I believe one of your gifts that you have, it's to be able to get people to kind of stretch themselves, to be able to take things on, to grow into it. That you will hire people who are good, highly talented people, and the role that you will put them in is going to be a stretch for them. But because of their talent and their attitude and their aptitude, they step into it, and you create an environment that allows them to fumble, flop, or whatever. And that's what, I was thinking about when you said about sports. For me, growing up and playing varsity basketball, starting as a freshman, I had a coach, I was blessed, who had me playing against seniors. And I just, and he had me doing things that I was incapable of doing. But I grew because of that process. And he had the ability to push me. I've watched you do that with people. I mean, I've watched you have people give talks in our ministry, and I'm going, really, Fred? And I've watched people walk in, just blow the walls out as they grew into getting their message out in a unique way. It's profound. And I think that your leaders would probably, thank you for that and chastise you for that, do at the same time. But I think that's a huge part about building alignment, is giving people an opportunity to grow. Because especially in today's time with this reset thing that's going on, that's one of the greatest motivations that people have when they're looking. They're trying to figure where can I be, not where I'm at now. And you've built this huge culture that really creates some opportunities for people in that.
Well, I think, Mike, like your basketball coach, of course, you had something that's not coachable, right? You had this thing called height.
Yeah, that helped a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Grew 9 inches in 1 year, yes.
I remember a basketball coach telling me one time, you can't coach height. So, but you do look for those innate attributes in people. I always do. I've read many books over the years about great organizations and business leaders and different leaders that always, I think it's about how looking for people that fit your culture. And I've always thought, in fact, let's see, where was I the other day? I was at a Starbucks, and the little girl that was serving the coffee in the Starbucks, I'm like, man, I'd love to hire that gal at some point, just for the way she handled just handing me a cup of coffee and making that transaction, the way she handled that. And you could just tell who she was, like, you want to hire her. So I've always made it a point of looking for people that are not necessarily in our industry, but have the right attributes. And some of those things are hard to coach because they're unique to that person. They're not necessarily things that we coach into them. They're the way God made them and the way they're wired. And then certainly a lot of it comes from their experiences. So I think looking into people and seeing what's in them is so important for us as leaders. Yeah. And really seeing, and I don't know, I always thought the best coaches I ever had were able to see in me more than I ever saw in myself. That's probably your experience. And I think that's what great coaches do. They see into us, again, like my coach De Leon, and our, RC Slocum, Paul Register. Those guys saw more in me than I ever saw in myself. And they probably were not being totally honest, when they say you can do these things, but they're hoping you can do them. And they're hoping it comes out. But I think that's true. I think coaching is so much, and leading people is about really encouraging and building people up so that they'll achieve this vision and objective of the team. And, I think it's so easy for us as humans to put limits on people. And, I think we're not God, and I don't know what somebody can do. I think there's been all these studies done on the brain, and we use such a small percentage of our brain on a daily basis. It's just a fraction of what the capacity is in our mental ability. And so, who am I to say what someone can do? I think you look for those attributes. I think one of the things too, I've always been a believer in looking for success attributes in people, like how have they done on teams?
Mm-hmm.
We like hiring athletes in many cases because we're looking for those attributes of having played on a team. And when you're on a team, there's people that you like, there's people you don't necessarily like so much. There's people that, boy, this person gives 100% and this person gives 70%. And you learn to live with that on teams. So I always like looking at people who have played well on teams and have been on teams and have, been able to achieve some levels of success in different things in life are often, I think, predictors of how they'll do on your team.
Yeah, because they've had the ability to deal with adversity that comes up, which that's called life. And how do you push your way through it? And what's interesting is I call them this is a Fredism I refer to often. It's start the journey, and the process will reveal itself.
Right.
And that spoke to me a lot because of the way that I'm wired, is that I want to have all my ducks in a row before I get started, because I want to make sure that I perform. And I've had to learn to recognize that's called the disc style. It slows me down. I've had to kind of. And when I heard you say that, or years back or whatever, it resonated with me. So I just, start the process. And it's amazing how doors open. I'm assuming that you've had to do that a whole lot as you built the Caldwell companies.
Yeah, it's a mix, right? There's some things I always tell our people, there's some things that, you got to get exactly right. I mean, they have to be exactly right. And they do have to be incredibly well planned because, particularly when you're building things. Once you pour that foundation of concrete, it's really expensive to change it. So you got to get those things right. But many other things are not what I call NASA critical. We're not sending people to the moon. We're trying something. We're doing this. And so, let's get started. And as we get started, we'll figure it out. And sometimes, and I have found too, you have to have the right people on those teams, because for some people, to your point, given behavioral styles, for some people that can really be unnerving. So you got to be careful who all you throw into those kind of mixes. But many times I think, I was talking to somebody earlier today, you have people that are really comfortable exploring, mm-hmm. and you have other people that are more comfortable making sure that everything is done right at the base camp, and that they're going to help move the base camp as needed. But then you've got I like to call Joshua's and Caleb's of the world that you send out there, and they have a different mindset about things. So I think part of it's just as leaders is evaluating our teams and saying, okay, how do we play at the people we have, and is this person a wide receiver? Is this person offensive tackle? Whatever they are, figuring out how to play them, which to me is so much fun,
Yeah. Especially, when you're collecting the highly talented, highly driven individuals, mm-hmm. They're going to have their vision of how things should happen. And because of that, sometimes you run into situations where people are kind of banging into each other somewhat. Is there anything you've learned to do to try to keep people kind of focused on the overall objective so that silos can be cracked and personal agendas can be weaved into the team?
Mike, it's a great question. And it's funny, again, I was talking about this with somebody this morning. I think a lot of that has to do, and this is going to be a funny answer. A lot of that has to do with the quality of your meetings. So I know you've probably read Pat Lencioni's stuff, and I think he kind of captured a lot of it very well. And that is, if we allow an environment to exist where people are not honest with how they feel about things, then I think you can end up with silos. I think where people, have a need to protect and to isolate, we end up with silos and what I call politicized environments, which I'm hugely against. It's a big problem in our country right now, by the way.
It is.
But where you get unity is when people can express themselves because there's trust. At the root of the ability to freely, you know, you and I have a trust with one another, and I think you could tell me what you would need to tell me and vice versa. And we would not lose trust. We would not lose friendship or any of that because we have trust. And I think that's really important, is this whole notion of how you build trust, because once you build trust, then you can build unity. Out of trust comes unity, and having shared vision and all that has to be rooted in this notion of trust amongst the team. And again, I look at our country right now, and it's where we're so fractured because there's no unity around common purpose and vision and goals for our country. And if we could get there again, I think our country would be so much better off, where people are not looking at the peripherals, but rather looking at the we part of the equation. Like, we are in this together. We live in the greatest country in the world. We have the greatest opportunities in the world. This is an amazing place for us all to live and work and raise families and do this together. Now, I pray that we get back to that.
Yeah, it goes back in that common vision that Lencioni talks about. What you're describing is this 5 behaviors of a cohesive team model that I do a lot of work with, and because I'm a huge fan of that area. And talks about trust. Trust is not, it is about honesty, but honesty starts with safety. It starts with the ability for us to be honest. We're safe to be honest. And once we get that, now we can have not conflict, but productive conflict. We can have disparate views on it. I'm thinking of meetings you and I've been in, and we've had different views on things. But at the end of it, we're focused on what we're trying to drive, which is God's mission in our life. And, we walk out and it's okay. But then once you get that, then what happens? Commitment comes in, but commitment only comes in play whenever you have 2 things. You have to have buy-in from the team, but the buy-in can only come from clarity. And so the role is to create an environment of discussion can take place. Leaders can bring clarity into play and to be able to drive things forward. And when I think about your company, your mission, you have such a focus on excellence in your community. I mean, if you go through any one of the master plan communities you guys built, and I've been blessed to have seen them, and it's like when you drive through there, it's I'm not going to say there's no grass out of place. That'd be a stretch. But I mean, the attention to detail that your team puts into creating this beautifully, highly organized, highly efficient family place is phenomenal. But here's the question that I've got. I was thinking about this: is how do you be on guard, or what do you have to be on guard for that might interfere with executing with excellence? Anything that you've kind of learned over a period of time, if you're going to focus on that, these are the things that might run into a problem.
I think, I mean, Mike, you're hitting on something that's real core to our business and what we do. And we have a mission statement, doing it right now. So do the right thing. And then once you figure out the right thing to do it with urgency. That's kind of one of our kind of premises of our company. We built our company around forever. But that notion of doing the right thing and doing things well with excellence is, it's hard. One of my favorite books of all time, and we built our company largely around Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. And I'm a believer in what Collins wrote, and that is that good is the enemy of great. We can settle for good very easily. And so for me as a leader, boy, that is one of my consistent messages to every meeting I'm in, is what is the excellent best thing we can do. And what I like to tell our people all the time is excellence costs. It costs money, it costs time, it costs emotionally. I mean, our people, sometimes there's literally the pulling of hair over our planning process at times. Our planning process on what we build is really arduous and hard, and it drives some of our people just crazy. But the pursuit of absolutely the right thing to build and what's going to achieve the objective for us is paramount. So, I think the pursuit of doing what's right is, from a leadership standpoint and from my perspective, it's probably at the top of the list for me. That we will pursue excellence in everything we do, and that what we build and the places we create and content that we deliver will be absolutely excellent in every respect. So, and that's a, never ending pursuit, because you're always fall short.
Yeah. So,
Always fall short. Yeah. To your point, is the grass always right? No, it's not. I mean, I drive through communities and developments all the time, and I've got my 59 things, because I'm looking at it critically as we see things. So every time I'm driving through one of our developments and whatnot, I'm always like, okay, we need to do this. These are things we need to up our standard.
Yeah, you also have a business partner, or you can call her a wife if you want to, who is somebody I think is an amazing model with that. Also, I've seen some of both the design work that she's helped put together and just the standard that Susan brings into play. That is just
So Susan has an even tighter definition of
that's why I brought it up. I mean, it's called setting the bar.
Well, and that's what I say. And you have to find those people on your teams that have that ability to see. She has it much tighter than I do. And then in our company, we look for those people that really have the ability to see what can be made better. And I think that's important on teams. If again, as you're evaluating the attributes of people on your team, like, okay, who can really see what needs to get better? A lot of people don't. But you'll have a few people on a team, given if you got 20 people on a team, then out of that 20, you may have, one or two that can really help raise the bar of excellence. And I would encourage any leader listening to this, be attentive to that. It may not be you, by the way, if you're the lead person in an organization or a team, find the people on the team that really have an eye for making sure things are done exactly right, and elevate them within the team. Because a lot of times those people are maybe not as vocal, because again, behavioral styles, Mike, which you're so familiar with, people that are very able to see things in high detail are not necessarily demonstrative. They're not vocal. They can get pushed down by those people that have different behavioral styles. And yet it's those very people that God has wired to be able to help the organization obtain excellence. So if you're the lead person, I think one of our goals, if we're leading a group, an organization, is to make sure those people that have different behavioral styles are not overlooked and are really encouraged in their gifting. And again, there are some people that are incredibly gifted at helping an organization obtain excellence. Susan, my wife, is one of those.
Yes. That's why I brought her up. I mean,
I'm glad you brought her up, and a very good example. And again, she's helped us in that, and she's helped train other people that have that same kind of mindset and eye for detail.
Yeah, and what happened? It's the word that comes to my mind is it's standard. It's excellence is not something you push for. It becomes a standard of operating. It's a mindset that goes into it, and I love her standard of constantly, okay, no, this can be better. Look at this. And so
it becomes part of your culture. I think if you drive it hard enough, it's like our culture is about excellence. And I don't know, high performing sports teams, you look at the Patriots, you look at whoever it is over a long period of time, you'd have to think, I don't even think you'd have to do an interview, Mike, to substantiate it. Just from the outside, you can tell that every detail is handled well.
Yes.
And they pursue excellence from, John Wooden, the great basketball coach, greatest of all time. I mean, he started the freshman class with how you tie your shoes. That was his first coaching lesson, was he'd bring the freshmen in and have them sit down, and he'd go through how he wanted them to put their socks on to how he felt like they should tie their shoes. Well, that's a level of detail and excellence that I would think 99% of the other coaches overlooked.
Yeah, very much. So one of my favorite American philosophers, his name's Clint Eastwood. But I read this article, an interview they did with him. He talks about, he's known for his what do you call it? His not studio, but his movie sets. That he's known for the pristine environment, the quality of food, just the calmness. I mean, he doesn't go and yell action like you see on movies. He goes and goes, okay, to get things started. But his comment is this: he says, beauty cannot be created out of chaos. And I've always remembered that. It's what do we do to take the bleed the chaos out of confusing times. And I know one of the tools and resources that is part of your culture is the word faith. And I can't get off this without asking you to talk a little bit about, because faith is such a key component of your leadership and the culture you built within your company. Where does it manifest itself for you and your team in leading your organization?
Well, hopefully throughout, right? Hopefully throughout. And that is that, again, it starts with our vision statement, which was on our wall right out in my office here. It says, we honor God. That's what it starts with.
Mm-hmm.
And we honor God by, and there's three kind of tenets that we say we honor God by: stewarding resources, cultivating relationships, and building extraordinary communities that enrich lives. So, I believe that God put us on this earth for a greater purpose than just making a dollar. And I tell our team that all the time. If we're just about making money, then I think we have a pretty, unfulfilling purpose in life. I've known people that have tons of wealth that are some of the most unhappy people I've ever met in my life, and unfulfilled people. And on the other hand, I know people that have incredible wealth that are very fulfilled. And because for them, money is not a measurement, but money's a tool. And so that's what I always tell our people: money is a great tool. It's a horrible scoreboard.
Mm.
And so, for me, as we have built our company and whatnot, our goal is to build resources and whatnot to continue building excellence into who we hire and how we train people and what we build and what we do. And so that we can, and then how we give back to the community, which is a huge part of what we're about. So, for me, faith is about honoring God. And I think we honor God in a huge part by how we treat people. So, how I act as a leader is really important. I don't get it always right. There's some days I get amped up about something. Oh my gosh, I got to go apologize to somebody. And by the way, as leaders, I would say that's one of the greatest things that you can demonstrate as a leader, is to demonstrate to the team humility by admitting and acknowledging when we're wrong, by saying, you know what, I was wrong. I didn't handle this right. What I said to you was wrong, and I apologize, and I ask for your forgiveness. I think those are important attributes of being a good leader, is that the team needs to see humility in us as leaders if we expect them to behave in a similar way. So
it's powerful. And Fred, what you just demonstrated, I want to chronicle this real quick for anybody listening or watching this, is that from a communication standpoint, you didn't say I'm sorry, because there's something about the words I'm sorry that lacks ownership. I don't know why psychologists have looked at it, but what you said was I apologize, which is different than I'm sorry. And number two, you said something really important that I've just started using a lot in the last year, which is that I could have handled that better. And when you say I apologize, I could have handled that better, there's a sense of ownership that goes out, a sense of vulnerability that goes with it, that really cascades and allows your that message you're trying to be delivered to be received better. And I think that that's a great model that you just did for that.
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, it demonstrates a higher calling and purpose in life. Like God put us on this earth to be in relationship with one another. And because of sin, we bump into one another. We hurt each other. I mean, again, we look at our world today. We're so fragmented and divisive because people are offended with one another. We live in a world of offense. People harbor offense towards others and hang on to it, and they drink the poison of offense. So I think one of the things that I believe is important for us as a company is to demonstrate not harboring offenses, loving our neighbor as we would want them to love us and care for us, that we would do that for others. Not that we get it always right, and we've got plenty of our challenges and errors, and starting with me. But I think at the end of the day, our goal is to really demonstrate a care for others. We don't, we're not going around, beating people with the Bible or things like that. I mean, not that the Word of God is really important, but I think what's vitally important for us is that we treat people well. And we point people towards a higher purpose in life than we simply are in the real estate business.
Yeah.
I think, there's a lot of people in the real estate business. I want us to be uniquely known for how we treat and care for people.
Yeah, you live out what I refer to as pointing people toward a cause, not a job. Not what the role is. All right. If you can take an accounts payable clerk and point them toward the cause of what that person's doing as they're processing checks accurately and impact it has on the vendors and the company, they're no longer data entry. You know, they can see themselves as a cog in the wheel, as
they're
opposed to
part of
something in a
something
job.
more than just their job.
That's it. That's a huge thing then. So, Fred, the last question I'll ask you, and I wish I had more time because this is fun, but it's really one of my favorite questions to ask people like yourself who've been on this awesome learning journey. And that's this: what do you know now that you wish you would have known then? Anything come to mind today versus when you were kind of getting started? What you know now, you wish you would have known it then.
Well, the thing that comes to mind, Mike, is years ago, I was at a seminar, I think it was, and there's a bunch of people that were in our industry that were all hard chargers, I'll call it that. And this guy said, I want y'all to think about your career. And we'd all probably been in business for 20 plus years at that point. And the guy said, I want you to look at your career so far and what you've achieved. And I want you to critically ask yourself how much of that is because of the number of hours you've worked or because of unpredictable, unforeseen things that just happened. And I would say in that room, almost to a person, all of us had to say it was not because of the hours we worked. Not saying that hard work isn't essential, it is. But one of the things that I learned early on, for the first probably 10 years of our business, I was never home. I had 2 young kids, 2 young girls growing up. Susan was basically a single parent. For the first 10 years, I was never home, literally never home. I mean, 7 days a week, I was in our office working because I felt like the business depended on me. And really, if you think about that, that's a lack of faith, by the way. Mm-hmm. That's a lack of faith. And so I wish I would have known then. What I know now is that it's not dependent on me. I'm an important part of this. I've got an important role that I've got to play every day. I've got to show up and play my role. But at the end of the day, it's not just totally dependent on me. And so I would encourage anyone listening to this to really recognize that things happen in business and in life that you cannot predict. And so much of that, almost 100% of it, relates to the relationships you build in life. And if you're so busy trying to achieve objectives like I was and had been in life, I've got to achieve this objective, I can miss the relationships that matter the most, starting with my family and my children and expanding it out to friends. And friendship requires time. And if I'm always about the next deal, trying to get something closed, or this business deal or whatever it is, then I can really undermine relationships that really matter. At the end of the day, this is the weird kind of conundrum of all this. At the end of the day, it's those relationships that ultimately lead to greater success in business.
Totally. So
the pursuit of objectives can harm relationships when in turn those relationships can allow you to achieve greater success.
Yeah, I can't think of a better way for us to put a cap on this thing, Fred. I want to thank you for your time and sharing your experiences and your thoughts. I've told you this before. You have a great brand in your business, but I still think you're the best kept secret in this great city of Houston that we're in. So it's for people who are blessed to be invited to be a part of your company and your journey. It's well worth seeking you guys out. So I thank you a great deal and wish you great success.
Yeah, Mike, thank you for your friendship, man. You've been a great mentor and a great friend. I wish you can, I love your podcast. It's super. Appreciate what you're doing. Yeah, take care, my friend.
All right. Thanks for joining us today on Lighting the Path, Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders. If anything in this podcast speaks to you, if I've challenged you, or if you want to spend time digging into this subject a little deeper, or if you disagree with me, reach out. My contact information is on our website, lightingthepath.net, or email me at mike@mikelejeune.com. Also, look for me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect our networks. Keep lighting the path for those who choose to follow you. It's more than a responsibility. It's an honor.